I know you're officially an adult when the biggest thrill of a Tuesday night is twisting open a jar of pickles without calling for backup. That's how my life was rolling along, predictable, solo, and perfectly fine, until Harper shot me a text that flipped everything upside down. Urgent faucet issue. Can you come over? I promised to feed you. I should back up a bit. Harper and I have this tangled history. We've known each other for years through mutual friends, surviving countless group dinners, where we'd always end up seated next to each other, like some cosmic seating chart prank. And we shared exactly one kiss at a New Year's party, one we've both pretended to erase from memory ever since. She's the kind of woman who wears confidence like an expensive cologne. You catch it the second she walks into a room. What kind of issue? I texted back. The kind where you call the fire department. Or the kind where you need a handy friend with a wrench. The kind where my kitchen is slowly turning into a swimming pool, and I'm one drip away from a full meltdown. 20 minutes later, I was at her door with my toolbox, trying not to notice how her post-divorce glow made her look like one of those magazine women laughing over salads. Effortless, radiant, untouchable. You came, she said, and in her voice, relief mixed with something I couldn't quite pin down. You said you'd feed me. I'm basically a golden retriever in human form. She laughed, and just like that, I remembered why I'd been half in love with her for years. Come in. Fair warning, I might have already knocked back 2 glasses of wine while negotiating with the faucet. The kitchen was indeed flooded, not full on pool levels, but enough that she'd spread every dish towel she owned across the floor in a colorful patchwork. So, I rolled up my sleeves. Did you try sweet talking at first? I attempted everything short of a say-ain'ts. I even played it some classical music, thinking it'd calm it down. And Beethoven. Apparently, my faucet prefers jazz. I knelt to inspect the pipes under the sink, hyper aware of her watching me work. Well, there's your culprit. This gasket's older than both of us combined. When's the last time this thing got any maintenance? Define maintenance. I glanced up at her. Okay, never. I inherited the house from my grandma, and I don't think she believed in it. She was more the "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" type. And if it was broke, walk it with a wooden spoon and hope for the best. 20 minutes of actual elbow grease later, the faucet was behaving like a civilized piece of plumbing, but something had shifted in the air between us. Maybe it was the wine she'd poured me as a thank you, or the way she perched on the counter, watching me with her legs swinging like a kid's. Maybe it was how she fiddled absently with the spot on her finger where her ring used to sit. Then caught herself. All fixed, I announced, standing up and wiping my hands on a towel. Just like that. Just like that. She went quiet for a beat, studying the now docile faucet. You know, that thing's been dripping for weeks. I kept meaning to call someone, but... She trailed off. But you're the only someone I wanted to call. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in with possibility. I set down my wrench and looked at her. Really looked. Her hair was messier than usual, falling in soft waves that caught the light from the overhead fixture. There was this tiny scar above her left eyebrow, a faint white crescent I'd never noticed before, like a secret she'd kept hidden in plain sight. And she was wearing this faded NYU sweatshirt that had seen better days, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows. She was stunning. I know, it's weird, she continued, hopping off the counter. I know we've got this whole friends zone thing going on, and I know my timing's terrible because I just got divorced, and I know you're probably thinking this is some rebound crisis, but... Do you have a rebound crisis? She paused, tilting her head as if seriously considering it. Maybe, probably, yeah. But not the kind where I'd hook up with the mailman or my yoga instructor. You have a yoga instructor. Focus, Miles. I'm trying to have a moment here. I stepped closer. What kind of moment? The kind where I tell you I've been thinking about that New Year's kiss for years. The one we both pretended to forget. Exactly that one. She was twisting the hem of her sweatshirt now, her fingers betraying a nervousness I'd rarely seen in her. And I keep thinking about how you always remember I hate cilantro when we order Mexican. And how you sat with me in the ER that time I broke my wrist. And how you're the only one who laughs at my terrible puns. Your puns are terrible. See, and somehow that makes you perfect for me. Which is either really romantic or deeply concerning. I reached out, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear, my fingers lingering just a second too long. For the record, I think about that kiss too. A lot. Really, and not just the kiss. I think about the time you fell asleep on my shoulder during that awful movie marathon. I think about how you sing along to the radio in the car, even when you butcher the lyrics. I think about how you tear up over those puppy commercials. Those ads are emotional terrorism. I think about how you're carrying this divorce like it's your fault. When anyone with eyes can see your ex was a fool who didn't deserve you. Her eyes misted over, just a little. Miles. And I think about how I've been too chicken to say all this. Because I was scared it'd wreck our friendship. Would it wreck our friendship? I cupped her face in my hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks. I don't know. But I'm tired of wondering. She rose on her tiptoes and kissed me, soft at first, tentative, like testing the waters after years adrift. Then with the certainty of long-buried longing, she tasted like wine and what-ifs finally unfolding. When we broke apart, she grinned. So, it happened. My kitchen's still flooded though. I glanced around at the towel mosaic covering every surface. Want to clean it up? She pretended to ponder. Or we could pretend it's a very shallow indoor pool and deal with it tomorrow. I like the way you think. She took my hand and led me to the living room, stepping carefully around the towels like we were wading through flower petals. The house was quiet. Save for the old radiator humming its familiar tune, and the sound of our hearts pounding a little too fast. You know, she said softly, turning to face me in the dim kitchen glow spilling into the hall. I've imagined this moment so many times, but I never pictured it surrounded by wet dish towels and the smell of WD-40. Is that a complaint? No, not at all. She reached up, wiping a smudge of grease from my cheek with her thumb. It's perfect. Chaotic and unexpected and perfect. We collapsed onto her couch and talked into the wee hours about everything we'd never said out loud before. About her marriage, how it felt like wearing someone else's clothes, ill-fitting, borrowed. Never quite right. About my fear of waiting too long, of missing my shot because I convinced myself she was out of my league. About how we'd danced around each other for years, like awkward teens too scared to hold hands at the mall. Somewhere between her confession that she'd kept the ticket stub from our accidental first date. That group outing where everyone else bailed, leaving us alone at the movies. And my admission that I'd fixed random things in my own apartment just to practice for the day she'd need me. The space between us vanished completely. When we finally made it to her bedroom, it wasn't with frantic urgency, but the slow certainty of two people who'd stopped pretending they didn't want this. The room was cozy, bathed in the soft light from a bedside lamp, with stacks of books teetering on the nightstand, mysteries and memoirs, dog-eared and loved. An old alarm clock ticked gently on the dresser, marking time we'd finally claimed. We explored each other with the curiosity of long-time friends turning lovers, hands tracing familiar paths with new intent. Her skin was warm under my touch, soft in ways that made my chest ache with how right it felt. In her eyes I saw a tenderness that hit me deep, like coming home after a storm. Afterward, she curled against me, head on my chest, and I lay awake for a while, stroking her hair and marveling at how I'd gotten so lucky. The radiator's hum lulled us both eventually, and sleep came easy, wrapped in her scent. Lavender and something uniquely Harper. I woke to the sound of off-key humming in the kitchen, mingled with the bold aroma of coffee, way stronger than my usual polite cup of joe. For a split second I forgot where I was. Then it hit me: Harper's house, her bed, her voice, that god-awful singing I'd fallen head over heels for overnight. I found her in the kitchen, wearing my T-shirt like it was made for her. Dancing barefoot around the towels we still hadn't bothered to pick up. She was attempting pancakes, flour dusted in her hair like accidental highlights. "Morning, handyman," she said without turning. "How do you take your coffee? Strong enough to wake the dead, or just enough to function?" "Somewhere in between." She poured me a mug and added, "Heads up, I might have broken the shower." I nearly choked on my first sip. "What do you mean, broken the shower?" "Well, I didn't do it on purpose. I was trying to figure out why the water pressure was weird. And I might have twisted something I shouldn't have, and now it's making a noise like a dying whale." "Harper, a very elegant dying whale." I set down my coffee and headed to the bathroom. Sure enough, the shower groaned like mechanical agony. "How did you even?" I started, then stopped. "You know what, never mind, I don't want to know." "So, you'll fix it," she called from the kitchen. "I'll fix it. And the kitchen sink." I poked my head out. "What's wrong with the kitchen sink?" "Nothing yet, but I have a feeling it'll act up soon. These old houses, you know, things break in clusters." I wandered back to the kitchen, where she was flipping pancakes with the focus of a surgeon mid-operation. "Yeah. Are you making stuff up just to keep me coming back?" She flipped one with maybe a tad too much force, sending a puff of flour into the air. "That's a serious accusation. Is it a yes?" She turned to me, spatula in hand, feigning innocence. "Would it work? Fake emergencies." "Yes." I stepped closer and kissed her forehead. "You don't need fake emergencies. Just ask me to come over. For real, for real. Though," I added, snatching the spatula and flipping the next pancake properly, If you keep cooking like this, I might have to intervene. This one's modern art, it's abstract, it's burnt. Same difference. 3 hours later, we'd mopped up the kitchen. I'd patched the shower and given Harper a crash course in why she should never, ever touch the plumbing without calling me first. And we were sprawled on her couch, sharing the Sunday paper like we'd been doing it forever. So, she said without looking up from her crossword. What's a 7-letter word for fresh start? I pondered. Renewal. That's 7 letters, but it doesn't fit the crosses. I leaned over, peering at her grid, pencil poised, flour still speckling her hair. My t-shirt hanging loose on her frame like she planned to claim it permanently. Romance, I said. She looked up, eyes sparkling. Romance, R-O-M-A-N-C-E, 7 letters, fresh start. She scribbled it in, and it slotted perfectly. You know, she murmured, leaning into my shoulder, I could develop more plumbing problems, I'm counting on it. We spent the morning like that. Her with the puzzles. Me with the sports section. Both pretending it was routine while secretly pinching ourselves at how natural it felt. The sun streamed through the windows, warming the room, and for the first time in ages, the world outside didn't matter. Eventually, reality crept in. I had errands, and she had a life to sort out. I should probably head home, I said reluctantly, checking my watch. I need to return Mrs. Peterson's hedge clippers before she mounts a search party. The infamous Mrs. Peterson and her hedge clipper saga. Harper laughed. Can't keep her waiting. I gathered my tools and headed for the door, her trailing behind in my t-shirt and bare feet. The sun had broken through while we weren't paying attention, gilding everything in gold and warmth. The kind of morning that tricks you into believing good things are not just possible, but inevitable. So, she said, leaning in the doorway as I descended the porch steps. Same time next week. I'm sure something'll mysteriously break by then. I turned at the garden gate, squinting into the light. Harper. Yeah. Next time, just call and ask me to come over. You don't need a busted faucet as an excuse. Her smile could have lit up the whole block. Where's the fun in that? I was halfway down the street when I heard her call. Miles, what if I told you the coffee maker's acting up? Then I'd say I'm bringing better coffee, I shouted back. Her laughter followed me around the corner, lingering like sunlight on my skin. Outside it was one of those flawless days. And inside everything was exactly where it was meant to be. To make that night even more vivid in my memory, I keep replaying the little details that turned it unforgettable. When I stepped into her kitchen, the air hung heavy with humidity from the leak, and the damp scent of soaked towels mingled with the rich, berry and spice notes of her red wine. Harper was in those loose yoga pants she always lounged in at home, her hair tumbling in loose waves over her shoulders like she just unraveled a braid after a long day. I felt instantly at ease. Like I'd crossed an invisible threshold from friend to something more, even if I couldn't admit it yet. As I crouched under the sink, wrench in hand, she perched nearby and spun tales from her childhood, stories of her grandma tending the house with fierce love but zero interest in hiring pros. She'd say, Harper, darling, a woman's home is her castle, leaky pipes be damned, she mimicked, her voice pitching into a perfect elderly drawl. I chuckled, the sound echoing off the tiles, and it felt like we'd slipped into our own bubble, the outside world fading to static. Once the faucet was tamed, we migrated to the couch, and the conversation uncorked like a bottle of aged wine finally breathing. She opened up about the divorce, not with bitterness, but a quiet acceptance that floored me. He was always so busy. Miles, she said, tracing patterns on the armrest with her finger. Missed the small stuff, you know. Like the drip of a faucet keeping me up at night, or laughing at a dumb joke over takeout. I shared my own ghosts, the years I'd hesitated, convincing myself she was too vibrant, too put together for a guy like me. Just an average Joe with a toolbox and a one-bedroom apartment. We reminisced about our mutual friends, those group dinners where the universe kept shoving us together at the table's end, like a not-so-subtle nudge we both ignored. Remember that time we debated pizza toppings for an hour? She said, her laugh bubbling up. You defended pineapple like it was a constitutional right. Guilty, I admitted. But you won me over with that anchovy argument, brave woman. That kiss was the pivot. The scene I'd scripted and rescripted in my head 1,000 times. Her lips were soft, tasting faintly of merlot, and in that press of mouths, all the pent-up passion we'd buried surged free, like a dam breaking after a decade of pressure. When we pulled back, breathless, we dissolved into nervous laughter, her forehead bumping mine. Well, that was overdue, she whispered. Then, ever practical, she glanced at the floor. Ignore the towels. They're abstract art now. It suited us perfectly, messy, real, unscripted. In the living room, she grabbed a throw blanket from the basket. one that carried a faint lavender scent from her laundry soap. And we burrowed under it like a shield against the chill of what-ifs. We traded dreams we'd never voiced, hers, a trip to Italy for authentic pasta in sun-drenched villages, mine, building a lakeside cabin where the stars blanketed the sky without city lights to dim them. We could do both, she murmured, her hand finding mine under the fabric. Pasta by day, stargazing by night. In that moment, it didn't sound like fantasy, it sounded like a plan. Slipping into her bedroom felt like time suspending, the air thick with anticipation we'd earned. The space was intimate, walls lined with framed photos of travels and family, a half-read novel splayed on the nightstand beside a flickering candle she'd lit earlier. That old clock ticked steadily, a heartbeat to our own racing ones. We made love slowly, rediscovering each other with the wide-eyed wonder of people who'd waited lifetimes. Her skin flushed warm under my palms, and in the dim light, her eyes held a vulnerability that twisted something deep in me, a mix of protectiveness and awe. "I've wanted this." She breathed against my neck, her words a confession and a promise. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of her, I traced lazy circles on her back, replaying every missed chance in my mind. The parties where I'd chickened out, the texts I'd overthought into oblivion. Gratitude washed over me. We were here, finally, and nothing else mattered. Morning brought the coffee haze and those pancakes, and watching Harper dance around the kitchen in my shirt was a sight I'd replay forever. Flower in her hair, hips swaying to some internal rhythm. She embodied joy in a way that made my heart stutter. Fixing the shower was half joke, half ritual, a flimsy excuse to linger, our banter flowing easy as the now steady water. "Promise me you'll call next time," I teased, tightening a valve. "These old pipes aren't built for your enthusiasm." "Deal." She shot back from the doorway, arms crossed. "But only if you promise not to judge my plumbing skills forever." We joked about her strategic sabotage. Maybe the toaster next or the garage door. And I vowed I'd always show up, tools or not. Cleaning up turned into a game, me wringing out towels, her folding them with exaggerated flair, both of us cracking up at the soggy battlefield we'd created. It was chaos, pure and simple. But in that disorder, I found a peace I'd chased for years. Over the crossword, I fed her clues, our heads bent close, her scent of coffee and vanilla shampoo wrapping around me. "Old movies," she hinted at a blank. "Classics," I said, "like that one where the guy fixes everything but his heart." She nudged me, then confessed her secret stash of black and white films. In turn, I admitted to scribbling poems in a notebook no one saw, silly verses about everyday wonders, like a woman's laugh cutting through a rainy afternoon. "Read me one sometime," she asked, eyes soft. "Only if you promise not to laugh." Too late, I already am. The goodbye tugged bittersweet, my toolbox heavier as I stepped out, but laced with promise. Her wave from the porch, sunlight haloing her messy bun, left me light-footed down the street, that rare buoyancy settling in my bones. Harper wasn't just a chapter, she was the whole damn book I'd been afraid to open. That night and the morning after marked our launchpad. In the weeks that followed, she texted. Not always with crisis, but often enough to keep the spark flickering. "A real leak here. Just because, coffee run there." We built on that bedrock of friendship, now laced with the thrill of romance we'd finally greenlit. I learned love doesn't always crash in like a rom-com montage. Sometimes it trickles in, drip by drip, until it floods your world in the best way. With Harper, I found not just a partner, but a soul who amplified my life in ways I'd never dreamed, her quirks becoming my favorites, her strengths my anchors. Looking back, it's clear the best things in life often hide in plain sight, tucked behind mundane moments like a leaky faucet or a midnight text. Our story, mine and Harper's, proves it's never too late to summon the guts to speak your truth, to risk the friendship for the what could be. How many chances do we dodge out of fear, letting old wounds or safe routines call the shots? But that one brave leap, it unlocks doors to desires we've buried deep. We showed that real love skips the fireworks sometimes, it blooms from tiny acts. The wrench turned just right, the laugh shared over burnt edges, the patience to truly see someone, and the real gem. Happiness isn't about dodging the mess, it's about diving in together, making sense of the splash. I just had to shake off my fears, Harper, her doubts, and suddenly, the horizon cracked wide open. Maybe we all need to quit chasing perfect setups and start spotting the magic in the everyday glitches. How about you? Ever brushed past a shot at something real, only to circle back? Drop your story in the comments, let's swap tales and see what sticks. If this hit home and you're craving more heart-tugging stuff like it, hit that subscribe and ring the bell. Every like, every share. It fuels us to keep spinning these emotional yarns with takeaways that linger. Thanks for riding along, means the world.